Love, sex, and lasting relationships. You know, we are all, every single one of us in this room, we just are made and wired and long to be loved and to give love. We are made and designed by the creator of the universe to have spiritual, emotional, and connection physically with a person of the opposite sex that does something in our soul and our heart. And we are longing for that experience to not fade, not end in divorce, but to last your whole life. And the question is, if you're single, how do you find that right person, right? If you're married, how do you keep that kind of love alive? If you're widowed or a widower, how do you avoid that pitfall of when to move forward, and because of the great need and the hurt and the hole in your soul of getting connected too early in some way with someone that usually ends up in a disaster? Why is it there's so many relationships, but most of them just don't turn out very well? I mean, over half of all the marriages don't work. And so that's what we're going to talk about. I encourage you just to sort of put on your calendar for the next few weeks. We're going to talk about love, sex, lasting relationships, and we're going to answer that. Because at the end of the day, even as basic as how do you know for sure you really are in love, and then how do you keep that flame burning? That's what we're going to address. There's some notes. Open them up if you will. And where I want to start is with something I think is pretty basic, is what's the secret to a lasting relationship? I mean, let's face it, there's some people that love each other. It's rare. I mean, you know, you can see them at all different stages and decades, and man, they are in love, and there's something to what they know that a lot of us don't. And what I'm going to suggest is there's two basic models out there that we're going to look at. Hollywood's model is one, and God's model or God's prescription to enhance your love life is the other. And so I want to look at Hollywood's model, and then I'll look at God's model, and maybe we can learn some things. Imagine, if you will, since we're in the Silicon Valley, that this small little tube is filled with multiple silicon, tiny little chips that can take information, and then you can turn it this way, and it can synthesize it through an algorithm to take all that information to come up with the basics of what's inside of it. So what, hypothetically, I put inside of here is the last 40 years of movies, the last 40 years of all television shows, the last 40 years of all self-help books, the last 40 years of all romance novels, the last 15 or 20 years of reality shows, and anything that's been written about love, sex, and relationships. And then when I take this and I say, okay, of all the movies we've seen, the magazines, the books, the world that we've grown up in, if I could shoot that out through some sort of algorithm to say, is there a step-by-step process to find the right person, to be in love, and have this great, awesome relationship with amazing sex? What would it be? Hollywood would say this. Number one, you need to find the right person. I mean, right? We all grew up. There's someone out there for you. You need to find them. Where are they? I wonder when, and how are you going to meet them? And so what we're told in each one of those movies and in the songs that we sing and the Netflix that we watch is, there's someone out there, but you've got to attract them. In other words, if you're going to find them, it's kind of like you need to be honey so the bees will come for you. And what Hollywood says is there's a way that you attract people. And what they say is that you need to be really good bait. You need to look a certain way. You need to dress a certain way. You need to drive a certain car. You need to be sort of hip or cool or neat or whatever word you want to use. And then there's a theme that's very, very physical in how you attract the opposite sex. And what I want you to know is that Hollywood's formula is find the right person, and that's the way. And then when you find them, you fall in love, right? I mean, in all the movies, I mean, you just fall in love. The picture is, you know, you're driving your car, and you stop your car, and it's at a red light, and you look over, and she looks over. You look again, she looks again, your eyes meet, electricity starts at the top of your head, you begin to shake almost uncontrollably inside your car. She has a Volkswagen, you have a Volkswagen, you don't know her, but you're in love. She pulls off and you want to follow her. Or sometimes it's a little less dramatic. You're just walking in a coffee shop, you notice her. She notices you. You go to refills at exactly the same time. You brush one another. Magic dust pours down upon both of you. I've got to know his name. You go back having not done any more than that, hoping that the same day, at the same time, at the same coffee shop, he or she will be there. But you return home to say to your roommate, I'm in love. Your IQ drops 30 points. You start acting in ways that are ridiculous, spending money you don't have, dressing up. Does this look good? Does this look good? Does this look good? What do you think? Should I buy a new outfit? Why? I'm going to the coffee shop. Why? To meet a guy I've never met, that I don't know his name, that I know nothing about, that I think I'm in love with. Now, is that not Hollywood's formula? You believe that a lot. I believe that a lot. The third step in Hollywood's formula is once you find that person, and once you sort of have this mystical, infatuated experience that we'll literally talk about later, because there's a chemical reaction that happens when we're infatuated, and God designed us that way, and it's a good part of a relationship. We just need to understand what part. Then you fix your hopes and dreams on this person. And what you do is that, so all the songs are, I can't live without you. In fact, once you find him and you fall in love, if loving you is wrong, I don't want to be. How did you know those words? You're amazing. Over and over and over and over. And then when you fix your hope on this person, and probably most everyone's been there, and then there's the breakup, your life, you can't eat, you can't sleep, you can't drink. Life is meaningless. You put on weight, you drink too much, you do all kind of things because what was going to make your life work is gone. And if you don't believe it, just ask all the pretty people who make all the movies, who are the most beautiful with the most money, who seem to not be able to stay together for more than a few months or a few years. And then finally, when failure occurs, you repeat steps 1, 2, and 3. And it goes like this. In a marriage, it goes like this. We've fallen out of love. I guess it just wasn't the right person. What was good for a few years, and she was that way and I was that way, but we've grown apart. All these euphemisms. The belief system is there's someone out there, and therefore, once you break up, you go back to the gym. You ever seen how many 40 to 50-year-olds there are in the gym? Right? Now you get a new wardrobe, you get a new car, and you play the same game, except the next time, the chance of failure goes up to 75%, not 50%. This is the mantra that you have been sold that destines you for dissatisfaction, or to never find the right person, or to have heartbreak that God never intended. The results are the success rate of Hollywood's formula is since 1960, the divorce rate has doubled. About 41 to 43% of people are divorced now, but since we don't count those who cohabitate and then break apart, a good round figure is about 50%. Over half of all divorces happen in the first 10 years, usually between year 3 and 6 is the most devastating time because reality hits in. Some young kids come, people don't endure. The pain and the fallout is really beyond what we often think. Despite all the words and talk shows of, it was an amiable divorce, we're still friends, it was just a mistake. The research indicates that the pain, fallout, and damage to the children, to the economics, half of all women who go through divorce live below the poverty level. Or just the fractured relationship and the pain is the tip of the iceberg. And that our problems and the tragedy of divorce follows us into adulthood. One of the most interesting studies I've ever read was Children of Divorce 25 years later, a landmark study that tracked kids from broken homes, longitudinally tracked them for over 25 years to find out what happens to kids, not now, oh, they're resilient, everything's going to be okay. Wallerstein is the founder of the Center for Families in Transition, one of nation's leading expert on divorce, and her book, The Unexpected Legacy of Divorce 25 Years Later, landmark study. She gives an example. Karen was 36 when she detailed to Wallerstein the long shadow cast by her parents' divorce. Like so many other children of divorce, James had embarked on a search for lasting love, yet was so deeply anxious that she was unable to trust others. A fear of abandonment kept her clinging to a string of unsuitable and troubled partners. I mean, it would be too embarrassing to ask you to raise your hand of how many in this room have been down that road or have a sister or a brother or one of your kids that you say, yep, that's what happened. It goes on to say, by the time the children of divorce reached their 30s, she found only half of them were doing well personally. Interestingly, it seemed that it had absolutely no impact on their work life. We substitute and we compensate. Here's all I want you to hear very clearly. Hollywood's formula is all that we've heard. You don't even have to try and not believe it or believe it. Every time you wake up and watch a commercial, read a book, glance at a magazine, watch a movie, this is the mantra behind it. And if you don't understand that you are being hoodwinked, seduced, seducted, and used, then you're a fool, because it doesn't work. Turn the page and let's ask ourselves, is there a better way? Could it be, as most engineers in this part of the country would say, if the people would just use the thing and the way we designed it, it would work, right? Isn't that what you engineers say all the time? We designed it like this, we planned it like this, we tested it like this, and those idiots at that company, they don't run it the right way. Now, God's not like that. But his heart is this. I made you, I designed relationships, and my desires are so wonderful and so good. Let me tell you the design and the plan that I made that makes relationships deeply loving, dynamic in sex, and really last. The answer is found in Ephesians chapter 5, verses 1 and 2, and I put the text in your notes. The first half of that book, he tells us who we are in Christ and how precious we are, how loved we are, what he's already done for us, that you are a son, a God because of Christ, and that you are adopted, and he cares for you, and it doesn't matter how you look, and he actually wanted you to be exactly the height that you are, with the personality that you have, with the eye color that you have, with the personality that you have, and he actually likes you. And you don't have to be this skinny or this hard-bodied or wear these kind of clothes. He loves you just the way you are. And by the way, that is the key to experiencing great love with other people. Because until you understand how deeply loved you are, you will try and find that love and make someone else the completion to make your life work. And it always ends in disaster. And so he says, therefore, be imitators of God. How? As beloved children. And walk in love just as Christ also loved you and gave himself up for us an offering and a sacrifice to God as a fragrant aroma. Now pull out a pen. I'm going to ask you just to make a couple observations. This will really help you. Put a line under where it says, be imitators of God. Just put a little line under it. And then above it, write command number 1. There's 2 commands in this passage. The word is mimic. Literally, it's command. Mimic God. Do in relationships with others what God does to you. Mimic him. Now, notice I want you to put parentheses around the next phrase is, as beloved children. So put around, so I'm to mimic God. I'm to love the way God loves in relationships with other people, but I'm to do it as someone who's already dearly loved and accepted and precious by God. Command number 2, underline, walk in love. Walk in love. It's a command. Notice the line that comes up next describes what it means to walk in love. Just as Christ also loved you. Put parentheses around that. So, command number 1, I'm to imitate God. How? As someone who's deeply loved and accepted just for who I am. Command number 2, I'm to walk in love. Walk is a choice, walk is progressive, walk is steps. Sometimes you fall down. But I walk how? Just as Christ loved me. The rest of the verse says, well, how did Christ love us? Who gave himself for you? It's a picture of, in all the portal of all time and all humanity, God saw you and he saw me. And when Christ was hanging upon the cross, he died in your place and in my place to pay for your sin. And then he rose from the dead to prove that it was true, to offer spiritual life, just as we're physically born, to offer a spiritual birth and a new relationship with God. Question. He does it to God as an offering, it's a sacrifice. When Jesus was praying through, for those of you with a little Bible background, remember the Garden of Gethsemane, or maybe you saw the movie? Did he emotionally want to go to the cross? Yes or no? Emotionally. I didn't hear you. No. So he's agonizing. Why? He understands separation from the Father. He understands the cross. He understands the thorns. He knows he's going to get beat within an inch of his life. All those things. But he looked at you and he looked at me. And here's what love is. Love is choosing to give another person what they need the most when they deserve it the least at great personal cost. That's what he did. And see, it changes your relationships. It's not, well, how do I feel? Is she meeting my needs? Are things going well? You know, our sex isn't as hot as it used to be. He's gained a couple pounds. You know, this is really difficult with our kids right now. There's a lot of pressure in our job. I don't think he's really the right person. I think we're growing out of love. No. Those are feelings, and those are movies playing in your head. Love is a commitment. Love is a choice to give another person what they need the most, not when they're being good, when they deserve it the least at great personal cost. Now notice, if I could take all this passage and put it in 4 steps like Hollywood's formula, it would look like this. Number 1, become the right person. That's what God's saying. Become the right person. If you have your Bible or mobile device, open up to Ephesians chapter 4, because it says therefore, right? It says therefore, be imitators of God. You need to look behind it, because what he's going to say is there's certain attitudes that you need to get rid of that are poison in relationships, and there's certain attitudes that are like God's that will transform relationships. So notice Ephesians 4, pick it up with me at verse 31. It says get rid of what? All bitterness, rage, anger, brawling, and slander, along with every form of malice. Any of you ever struggle with having some of those attitudes, actions, or words come out of your mouth in your relationships with the opposite sex? Oh, good. I do. When you get hurt, when you get rejected, when you're confused, when you feel betrayed, anger, bitterness, slander, start telling other people, malice, how do you get back at them? But notice, look at verse 32. But be kind to one another, compassionate or tenderhearted, forgiving one another, just as God in Christ also forgave you. When he says mimic God, he says become the right person. You become a person that's kind. What's kind? You do nice things for other people just to bless their life. Compassionate, that means you're tender-hearted and you walk in their shoes and you're empathetic and you understand where they're coming from, and it's not demanding about what do I get, but it's how do I give. When they blow it, you're forgiving. It's not that you become what do you call it a doormat, yeah. It's not that you're doing that. And there's boundaries, of course. But when they blow it just like you blow it, you don't hold it against them. You get it on the table and you forgive them. Mimic God. Here's the deal. Here's what's wonderful about God's deal. For those of you that are divorced and not in a relationship, for those of you that are single and not in a relationship, for those of you that are 13, 14, or 15 and thinking, I'm not exactly sure what all this is about, but my parents said it'd be a good idea for me to sit in on this. All right? And I can hear him saying, I know a lot more of what this is about than this guy thinks, which is actually quite true. You don't need to be in any relationship to become the kind of person who mimics God. Let me ask you this. If you found a person to date that was kind, compassionate, tender-hearted, other-centered, and forgiving when you blew it, would that sound like a pretty good catch? That's a different set of qualities than, man, she looks good in tight jeans, or I love him in a tight t-shirt, or he drives a Ferrari. That's really different, isn't it? And see, the thing is the people that are really kind and very loving and forgiving and godly, guess who they're looking for? They're looking for other people that are very kind, very loving, right? So the way to get the best is to become the best. You need to become what you want. And you can work on that every day. That's why the greatest thing I do for my wife every single day is pursue passionately my relationship with Christ so I can become more like him as his Spirit creates in me through his word and community, the living Christ in me. The second thing is rather than finding the right person, you become the right person, and then it's you don't fall in love, you walk in love. You walk in love, so it's a choice. And we've defined it. It is, you got it yet? Love is giving another person what? What they need the most, when they deserve it the least, at great personal cost. See, what I can tell you is, I didn't know any of this. I never picked up a Bible till I was 18. And I did the whole deal Hollywood's way until I was in my early 20s. And all the fallout and all the mess, get it, okay? And then I got married. And in our relationship, we really did do it God's way. So I thought, it's God's way, it's going to be great, it's going to be awesome. Well, it was for 3 months. It was really awesome. And then I found out that, I needed to walk in love, and, Teresa wasn't going to meet all my needs, and I didn't know that if you're the son of an alcoholic, you become the rescuer, and my antenna was always up everywhere. How do I help? How do I rescue? Because I feel good about me when I rescue people. And she had this little light that said, I came from a difficult home, and then I got abandoned by this guy, and he was selling drugs and ran off with another woman, and I got these 2 kids, and I'm looking for help. Well, we were a match made in hell. And I don't mean that as a cuss word. I mean that as a description. And so we both love God. We got married. Well, 3 months in, she really doesn't want me to fix her because that's all I can do. And I really am really pretty struggling with some of this dysfunction that was really attractive because, so I mean, we're married like 3-6 months, and now I'm in seminary. Now I'm in counseling. It's the best money and the best time I ever spent. Why? Because you can only walk in love. What do you have up there that's in parentheses? As a dearly loved. I've got the word beloved. We don't use that a lot. Think about this. Walk in love as someone who feels God's love and acceptance pouring over your mind and your heart and your soul. So at some level, you don't care what anyone on the whole earth thinks about what you think, what you wear, what your body's like, because you are so precious and so loved, and you are someone's son or someone's daughter, and he made you special. And when you get that, now instead of needing, you can give. And so I had to learn how to do that. But a lot of it was, I made her nuts, she made me nuts. And she tried to fix me. It did not work. So I tried to fix her. Did not work. I talk to couples that are going through really hard times. It goes something like this. Well, if she would boom, 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 then it would be okay. Well, I would do that, If she pick up stuff around the house. And before we got married, we used to have sex. And now it's kids and stuff and work and pace and pressure. And then, before we got married, he did silly stuff like open the door. He jotted me notes. He'd call me. I'm just thinking of you. We talked for an hour and a half on the phone. Now I can't even get him to text me back. And then he wants to make love. Are you kidding me? Give me a break, dude. Boom, 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 boom. And you know what? Someone has to stop and say, you know what? I'm not going to keep asking, what do you give me and am I fulfilled? That's Hollywood. Someone steps up and says, you know what? We can break the cycle. I'm so deeply loved by God. In the midst of all this, yeah, we probably need to get some help. We probably need to get some good counseling. And we probably need to get in a small group with other people that are as messed up as we are, because everyone's messed up. They just don't admit it. And we're going to help one another. And I'm going to choose to give my mate what they need, even when I'm not getting anything back. Because once that happens, a cycle breaks. Hearts get tenderized. Restoration occurs. The third is you not only become the right person and walk in love, but you fix your hope on God, and you seek to please Him through this relationship. So, see, at the heart of all of Hollywood is narcissism. We will be nice to people, we'll do things, but there's always a sort of it's a quid pro quo, and I'll do this if you do that. I'll act like this if you do that. I'll give this to get that. That never is sustainable. And then when you put your hopes and dreams on this person, and then things break apart, you're devastated. God's the only one that can make this work, and until you're whole with Him, you don't have the ability or the capacity to really love. There's a couple professors in Seattle Pacific, and they teach a course that everyone takes that's not required. It's about love and relationships and how to find the right person. And there's no notes. You don't have to take any notes. You don't have to come to class, and they come, thousands of them. But they read this statement at the first class, and everyone has to memorize the statement, and they go over it every week, and then they teach people about how this works. Les and Leslie Parrott write, if you attempt to build intimacy with another person before you've done the hard work of becoming a whole and healthy person, every relationship will be an attempt to complete the wholeness that you lack and end in disaster. Boy, we could have, if we were like one of those old-time tent meetings that I've seen on TV, and I was a black pastor, I'd say, can I get a testimony? Right? We've all done this, haven't we? We've all done this. We're trying to find someone to fix these holes in us. And see, if you just say, you know what, no one has the power to do that. I don't care who they are or what they look like, they will always let you down because they're human, just like you let them down. And the paradigm is, I'm going to become the right person. I'm going to walk in love with my Heavenly Father so I can choose to give what only He can give me. And I'm going to fix my hopes and dreams not on this person because they're going to let me down, but this marriage, I want it to be, as much as I want to be fulfilled, and that would be a nice byproduct, I want this to be an offering to God. There's been times in my marriage, I'll admit this, even as a pastor, it was like, I don't want to stay in this marriage. This is too hard. I'm too frustrated. I mean, in a nice way, she makes me nuts. We had so much stuff to work through. And we needed all the counseling and a little bit more. And since then, 35 years later, we have read so many books and listened to so many things and gone away on weekends. You know why? Because we're desperately needy to learn how to love God and to love each other. But you know what it did? It sustained us through the little hard times and sustained us through the years 3 through 6. It sustained us with baby and diapers when you didn't have much time. And it sustained us when some of our teenagers were going crazy. And then, boy, the empty nest, it was hard for me. I was real excited about it. My wife has all this grief. We were losing our kids and ministry that went this way. All kind of seasons, they have difficult times. And God wants you to know, if you could but grasp that in a fallen world, you will always have difficult times. But if you become the right person, if you walk in love and you set and fix your affection on Him, He'll take the difficult times like a piece of sand that rubs the wrong way in the oyster of your heart, and He'll create a pearl. And you'll end up, if you persevere, like I've hit a window that I never dreamed was possible. I get 35 years to look backwards. The intimacy in the marriage that I have is beyond anything I dreamed. Every area of my marriage is better than I thought it could be. And every area that you can imagine, we've struggled in. And then the best we could out of all of our dysfunction, we tried to model for our kids. This is the direction to go. And they grew up and they said, you know what? I think I'm going to do relationships God's way. And they found mates that love God, and now they're raising kids like this. And adult kids that want to be around you. It's like, are you kidding? And now they're having little kids. And here's what I'll tell you. The rewards that God has for you are beyond your wildest dreams. And the great majority of people and the great majority of Christians bail out too soon, too early, because basically you've been believing this stuff. And these are just magazines. You can't watch 5 Netflix movies a week and watch 3 reality shows, and it just seems like all the action is out there. The fact of the matter is this, interesting research. Those who walk closely with God, pray together as a couple, are in God's Word on a regular basis, and worship together, divorce is in the low single digits. It happens, very rare. And then, this is research. I mean, someone has to do this, so I thought I would. You know where the hottest, greatest sex is in America? It's not in the singles at all. Monogamous couples with deep spiritual values and commitment to one another. You know why? Because sex wasn't designed to, quote, just have a physical experience. When there's a spiritual connection and a connection of the soul and the heart and the mind, and when there's 2 people doing life together, coming together physically is a celebration. And God says the marriage bed is holy. It's not dirty. It's holy. And there's something that happens, even the current research about in a man's brain, certain things happen inside our brain that allows walls to come down as we're with our wives in intimacy, that allows a depth of sharing. God's plan is you become the right person, you walk in love, you set your affections on him, and when failure occurs, repeat steps 1, 2, and 3. And it will. I mean, after 35 years, does anyone think Teresa and I ever have an argument? Raise your hand. Yeah. Put them all up. Of course. After 35 years, 35 years of working hard, does anyone think that she disappoints me or I disappoint her and we hurt each other's feelings? Yeah. So, in the old days, what I did was, man, this is what she's doing, and when she changes, then. And she was going, well, I'll tell you what, I'll change when you change. Because it was all about finding the right person, falling in love. And now, when that happens, I go back to step 1. The grammar actually isn't just become the right person. It's literally not just imitate God. The grammar is demonstrate yourself as imitators of God. And I go back when we're having a conflict, and it's a choice, and I say, God, this is not, I'm not happy. So what do you want to do in me? What is it about me as a man? What is it about me as a father? What is it about me as a husband that you want to change, that needs to change? Because I tried like years to change her. That's not going to work. I've got zero control of her, 100% of me, so I go back to step 1. I want to become the right person, so I'm going to own. Even if in my perverted little heart it's 90% her and 10% me, I'm going to own my 10%, I'm going to repent. And it's probably 60-40, and it's probably me the 60. But I'm deluded like you. That's the way we are. And now I'm going to walk in love. I'm going to give her whatever she needs, and I don't feel like she deserves it. And I'm going to choose to do that, not even for her. I'm doing that for you. And I will tell you, power, forgiveness, breakthrough. Success rate is amazing. The hottest, best lives are with people that love God deeply. And the reward and the legacy I basically have shared is I come from a non-Christian home, little Christian exposure. I thought born again, evangelicals, whatever the term is of people that actually believe the Bible and a personal relationship with Jesus. I grew up thinking you all were just nuts, okay? Until I saw it lived out. And then I watched how the world lived, and I thought, I've always been at least shrewd. Maybe not smart, but shrewd. And if you're shrewd, what you look at is, let's see, 50% chance round 1 it won't work, 75% round 2. I don't know if I can afford to be on a diet and have a hard body the whole rest of my life. This is a lot of work that doesn't work for almost anybody. I'm probably not in the 1% of the gene pool. I don't look like Brad, Julianne, Christy, whoever. Maybe God's way does look a little better, right? And here's what I got to get. Look, turn in the page and look at a couple pictures, because I just want to give you a quick profile, because some of you are word learners and some of you are picture learners. And so I want to take everything we've said about God's way of doing relationships and put it on a little pyramid. It's up on the screen and you can fill it in as I go. But if you are single or if you are divorced and feel like there's a freedom to pursue a relationship, if you're a widow. Now, by the way, if you're married, you can say, how am I doing at this? Here's where you want to start. The issue is not, does she look good in tight jeans or does he look good in a tight t-shirt and what's he drive? The issue is spiritual. Is he a godly person? Is she a godly person? Integrity, character, that's what you're looking for, number 1. Regardless of if the little, electricity goes through your head. You can hold off on that. Secondly, you want to see them in a social situation with no dating. You want to see how they treat friends and people when you go out and you hang out and you see them at work or see them with friends. You want to see them socially so they don't put on their, I'm trying to get you face. The moment you start dating, you paint your face, he paints his, and you play a game. Third, then you want to really get to know the person. More beyond a little psychological profile that's on the internet. You want to get to know his heart, her heart, dreams, personality. What do you want? Kids, finances. You want to really get to know them. All the research tells us that before 1960, the reason that there were so fewer divorces is that people took a long time and a slow road toward relationships for a number of reasons. Number 1, there was taboo of getting divorced. Number 2, there wasn't contraceptives or acceptance of cohabitation. And so you realize if you get in a relationship and you get pregnant, you're stuck. And so people took a long time to figure out, is this the right person? And they've evaluated. In 1969, the reform of the laws changed. There was no-fault divorce. Pretty soon, cohabitation went from a thing that people should never do, whether you're a believer or not, to it's normal, it's accepted. So people slide into relationships. They slide into relationships, now they feel trapped, now they have a baby, now it's like, this is not the right person, but it took me 2.5 years to find out. And so now I'm going to get a divorce. And so you want to know this person. Then you kind of hold back those emotional feelings, and as God gives you green lights, then you click in on the emotion, and next week, don't miss it. We're going to talk about how to really know if you're in love, and the difference between love and infatuation. And then, are you ready for this? As these things line up, you get married. Okay? You get married, and then the spiritual and the social and the soul and the connection, and you don't just have sex. You make love. And the angels in heaven and the God of heaven, far from being dirty, says, this is a holy and pure thing. And so when your kids are small and they ask about sex, you tell them, absolutely, it's a wonderful gift from God. And then when they're preteens, you say, yeah, pretty soon your body's going to be changing because God is preparing you for something very wonderful. And then when they're teenagers, you talk about sex and how the sacred stewardship that it is and why. And you know what? It's important that we completely reframe. Otherwise, here's what they're doing. Dad's not watching them in the drugstore. Woo, well, those naked ladies look pretty cool. That guy's got it. You train your kids. You give them God's prescription early on and all the way. You'll be glad you did.